Hey there, so I am cleaning up some gizzards in my kitchen. I picked them up, or the farmer dropped them off. When they process their chickens, they actually just throw out the gizzards, and so if I come get them, I can just take them all. And the gizzards have two parts. I have a couple left to clean up, and I just thought I'd go live really quickly so that if the right person who needs to know this information, like, is out in the universe, they might be able to show up just at this right moment. But okay, so I've got these gizzards from my farmer, and I'm just processing them down. The last ones I've done pretty much a full bowl of these. I've cleaned them up. This is the part that I'll keep, the meaty part, and this is the part here that I'm going to discard. This is like the sack of rocks, and so I just want to show you how this goes. Okay, so here is the little gizzard, and the gizzard is like in the throat of the bird, and what happens is they eat the food and it goes inside and it ferments, like the seeds or grains or grasses. It'll ferment inside. There's like a little sack of rocks inside, and then after it's been in there for a little while, the muscles, like the outer portion of the gizzard, the muscles will kind of squeeze together, and the rocks inside will pulverize the food that's there. So when I get these, I go to a meaty part of it, and I open it up, and then this juice dripping down my arm. Okay, so this is it's kind of a tricky thing because there's two layers. There's like this, I'll set this down here, I'll try to show this. This is a gizzard that I've already cut open, so when I open it, there's this white, I kind of consider it a turtleneck inside, and there's that white layer, and I have to cut through that white layer so I can peel this off, but I don't really want to puncture the bag of rocks that are in the middle, and so I will, and so that's exactly what I've done here. And so you can see there's something inside there, but it's actually cut open. And so what I can do now is I can kind of just get my fingernail in there, and I can peel it back. And when I peel these gizzards back like this, then I can just extract this little sack of rocks right here and take them out. And then kind of gingerly at the top, because I want to get all the skin off. And then I'll just discard that, and I'll keep this nice piece of meat. So, and the gizzards are, I think that's something that people used to eat back when they had just a couple chickens and they processed them themselves, and probably everybody knew what to do with them. And I have a friend who grew up on a farm who's a little bit older than me, but he says, that they always ate the gizzards because they couldn't sell them. So, but I think that the problem with gizzards, and really a lot of the organ meats that I've talked about several times in the past, is just that they have a lot of connective tissue in them, and that's kind of unfamiliar to most people because we tend to primarily eat the muscle meats, and the muscle meats don't have the same properties. And so what happens with connective tissue is that if you get to about 140 degrees, the fibers inside of it, there's all these fibers that kind of make up the tissue, and they are going to seize up, and when they seize up, then your meat is going to be really dry and tough and rubbery. And when that happens, then well, anyway, it's just no good, right? So nobody wants to eat meat like that. And I think that actually even a lot of modern cookbooks that include one or two organ meat recipes, they just tell you to cook them, pan fry it, or cook it in some way until it's just cooked and then eat it. But that's actually the worst thing that you can do in a lot of cases, because a lot of these cuts, like heart and kidney, and even especially gizzards, are going to have a lot of connective tissue in them. So the solution to that is actually just to cook it slow and low. Well, you can either eat it rare or raw, which is always a possibility, and it won't be too tough. But for chicken gizzards, for example, I really wouldn't want to do that. So the other solution is to cook it for a really long time, and then those fibers are going to relax, and then the meat is going to be, just like a regular meat. And in the end, actually, it could be quite tender, because the other special property about connective tissue is that the glue that holds all those fibers together is actually collagen. So when you cook it for a long time, you end up with a really gelatinous liquid that it's cooking in, and you end up with something that's really rich and succulent and delicious. So when I boil these gizzards later, I will definitely save the broth, and I will end up with a really gelatinous broth. And it's not going to be the best flavored broth, because I'm familiar with the flavor of a chicken broth, necks and backs and things like that. But it's still fine, and if I'm going to make a flavorful soup with a lot of spices, it'll work fine. If I'm going to cook grains, if I'm going to cook rice, I will definitely use that broth. So that is great. And of course we all know the benefits of collagen and gelatin, because the beauty world has taken over with those, but skin and hair and strong nails and stuff like that. But I think that really the most important thing about eating these connective tissue cuts and these, you know, just eating the whole animal, nose to tail, tendons, joints, ligaments, all that stuff, is that they really balance the muscle meat. So the muscle meat has certain amino acids in it, and then these other offcuts will have certain amino acids, and they balance it really well, and they keep the amino acids that are in muscle meat, like methionine, from getting out of balance. And when you have like a really high amount of the muscle meat types and a low amount of the other, then of course that's like a risk factor for all-cause mortality and all that stuff, like cellular stress and all that. So I think it really is important to include this in our diets, and people are warming up to that. So let's see, I think that this is my very last gizzard for this project. So if perhaps the person that needed to see this showed up, I get a lot of questions from like homesteaders and other people that may have access to these cuts but don't know what to do with them. I cut into the muscle just a little bit like that. I try not to go too far. It's a little bit of art, a little bit of science, and then I'm able to kind of just peel this off, this white connective part of the gizzard, and then I can just peel out this sack of rocks from the inside, which is awesome. So if I buy these from my farmer, they actually usually come where this inner white, I love calling this a turtleneck, I don't know why, it just reminds me of a turtleneck, where this turtleneck part has actually been removed, and I'll end up with like just like these lobes of basically muscle meat. And so yeah, that's how I would get it from a farmer. I have actually seen them in the store at my local Safeway. So of course they're like $1 a pound, like nobody wants them, like all the other organ meats, and they're super cheap. But yeah, but in my opinion, this is a great cut because, as you can see from its color, it's really dark red, and that means that it is infused with a lot of blood. So just like the thigh is a more nutrient-dense cut than the chicken breast because it's a darker meat. The darker meats have more blood in them. The blood has a lot of nutrients in it. They're higher in iron, higher in minerals, things like that. So I did not actually look up in my handy USDA nutrient database that I am always referring to. I didn't look up the nutrient properties of gizzards before this because I was just prepping these and decided to jump on. But in any case, I think that like all of these, like you could make an argument for mineral, but I don't even think that that's even like why I would eat them. I mean, I eat them so that they don't go to waste, they don't get thrown out, and I eat them because I know that balancing the muscle meat with the connective tissue cuts is really important. The other thing is that if you're feeling a little bit inspired and you want to eat some gizzards, there's so many, like you can replace, if you actually boil them for a couple of hours, they'll be really tender. Like oftentimes they're served and they're pretty tough because they're just not cooked enough, but we have to break down that connective tissue, and we have to allow the release of that gelatin, which also serves us. So if we boil them for a couple of hours, I always do that covered so I don't lose all the water when I'm doing it, but like I said, I'll save that broth. But then after that, I can basically chop these up and use them in any recipe that I would use chicken in. So any kind of soup, I can use them in that. I can also put them in risotto. You can, of course, fried gizzards and fried livers, like a Southern style dish. You can do that. And you can, if you're not going to boil them before you make a fried gizzard dish, I would definitely recommend that you marinate them for at least 48 hours in an acidic thing. So like buttermilk with hot sauce, or some other kind of acidic medium would be very good. Yogurt, something like that. But because you do want to really like break down and soften that tissue. But another thing is that gizzards are actually really high in protein, so they don't have a lot of fat in them. They're a really high protein cut, so they also benefit from like a slow cooking in fat, like a confit style preparation where you can just cover them in some kind of fat, like duck fat or lard, and do a slow and low cook that way for an extended amount of time. They'll get really tender, they'll be infused with all that yummy fat, and then you can like shred them like pulled pork and make rillettes or something like that. Anyway, there's just like so many great ways. So if you are curious about gizzards, I have a blog. It's the same name as my handle here. It's awfullygoodcooking.com, and I have all these headers like liver, kidney, tongue, tripe, stuff like that. I don't have gizzards up there, but if you search for gizzards in the search bar, you'll get a half dozen recipes or more, and there's really like no end to the possibilities of what you can do with them. So that's pretty much it. So hopefully the right person that needed to be here jumped on, and I appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, like message me anytime. Okay, I'm gonna clean these up. What I'm going to do with these ones that I've just finished preparing is I'm going to rinse them pretty well. It is possible, and it has happened in the past, that like one errant rock will get in there and then somebody gets that in their dinner and like no one's happy about that. So I will rinse them out pretty well. Sometimes when I'm doing this too, the juices from the sack, like will kind of, these are like digestive juices, and they might spill out onto the gizzards as I'm preparing them. So if I feel like rinsing them isn't enough, or sometimes I end up, a lot of these, like there's like a little bit of extra tissue from the sack that is like still needs to be cleaned off of here, I might clean them also with a little bit of vinegar, or I might do a parboil where I just boil them once and then discard that water, and then I'll do the long boil with them. But I think that these ones cleaned up really well, and there were no kids involved in the process. A lot of times my kids are helping me clean these. I think that might also be the source of some of the rocks that we've had in the past. But anyway, since there were no kids involved today, I'll probably just rinse them and then I'll just boil them for 3 hours, and then they'll be ready for any recipe I want to do, and I'll be able to save all that awesome broth. So anyway, reach out anytime with any questions. Check out my site, awfullygoodcooking.com, for recipes for gizzards or for any of your other organ meat cuts. And thanks for being here.